Yields back. Chair now recognizes gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all the witnesses for joining us here today. Mr. Wilburn and Captain Moak, thank you. And Mr. Anderson, I want to thank you in particular for joining us and for bringing so many of your colleagues. Delta is an important and iconic company. I think you all should be congratulated for the great work you've done positioning this airline as such a successful business. And the fact that all your colleagues joined you here today is a reflection of the good culture of the airline and your good leadership. So I just want to make it clear that I think what you're doing is terrific. And my question is actually more of a factual question, and perhaps unlike some of my colleagues, I don't actually know the answer to my question before I'm asking it. But I was struck by this page when you put it up. And I was very concerned by it because, as I think many of my colleagues know, I care deeply about free markets and believe that market pricing should dictate all of kind of government financing. And when I saw this, I was very concerned about that because it said that the government's making a loan at 3.4%, and the same loan in the market would be made at 6.1%, and that's obviously a very big subsidy. But as someone who's used to reading footnotes, I did read the footnote, and it said that the private market example is something called Doric Nimrod Air Finance Alpha. And I looked that up, and that is a special purpose entity in Ireland that owns 58 airplanes and leases those 58 airplanes to about a dozen carriers, including the Emirates. And it leases those airplanes on an operating lease basis, not a capital lease basis, which means the risk of ownerships and the benefit of ownerships are not fully transferred to the lessee. And so when I saw this, recalling my days in the credit business, I said, well, this strikes me as a worse credit, because I would much rather lend directly to Emirates and have their full faith and credit, saying that they're going to pay back every penny of the loan on a fixed amortization, which is what XM finances, versus the loan to a special purpose entity that has structurally and contractually certain limited recourse. Now, I may be wrong about this because, again, I'm just reading the footnotes and I just did some searching on my little Google device here. But my question is, A, is that accurate? And B, do you think, I mean, as the CEO of Delta, if you were to borrow directly from a bank and put the, and I recognize you didn't have to borrow to buy your planes, which is great. But if you were to put the full faith and credit of Delta Airlines on the line, as well as a lien on the aircraft you purchase, wouldn't you expect to borrow at a lower rate than if you were to set up an unrelated company that purchases the airlines and signs a lease to you with certain limited recourse, and then you were to get a loan for that special purpose entity? So I'm really just trying to figure out what the apples-to-apples pricing comparison is.
What we've worked to do here is make it apples to apples. Okay, and if you go down through the footnotes, obviously the coupon, these were both public market financings.
Right.
The one on the left had an Ex-Im Bank guarantee attached, right? And you can see the collateral. The coupon is beyond question.
Yeah, that's obvious.
The coupon was obvious. The loan-to-value ratio with the Ex loan-to-value ratio, because you don't need as much equity. And what you've approximated here is that this is the Emirates credit.
But it's really, but isn't it true that it's actually not the Emirates credit?
No, but it is the Emirates credit based on what Moody's said. I mean, I can give you.
I mean, I read the Moody's credit report on my device here, and it talked about how the lessor had risk of the value of the asset at the end of the term, and that it wasn't fully recourse to the Emirates.
Pardon?
That it wasn't fully recourse to Emirates.
No, this is an apples to apples because they're both issued at the same time, and both of them were public financings.
Right. But
and one of them they decided they were going to lease, so I think the market-based financing was a lease-based financing on the A380s.
Right, but at the end of the lease term, the lessor takes back that airplane if the lessee doesn't. Like if you leased a plane, at the end of 10 years, if you didn't want the plane, you'd give it back.
Correct.
Someone had a loan on that plane, that loan wouldn't be your obligation.
But airlines lease, well, we tend to want to own, right, because you get the residual value. But part of what the market is reflecting here is that they are going to return. They've decided they want the option to be able to return the airplane in 5.7 years because that's the average life of the lease.
So just a quick question. Do you think you should pay less for the direct Delta credit in the market secured by assets than you do for a lease?
Well, yes, you will. I think you're better off. Well, it depends on the airplane, and that's probably what they're doing here. They probably want to own the 777s, but they probably only want to lease A380s. And this is what a lease looks like for Emirates at their credit.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Mulvaney.